people, so just a few things I want to get over real quickly. Number one, this is the first time in a video I'm going to be wearing my Stabbing shirt, an amazing brutal death band from Texas. Recommend you check them out, give them some love. Number two, I understand that there is some noise in the background. It's not my dishwasher this time. It's the Florida weather. I live in fucking Florida. Deal the fuck with it. And I am still recovering from being sick, so hopefully I can get this down real quick with no problems whatsoever. So let us begin the intro now, shall we? Onision, Davi Vanity, Jaystation, Ronnie Radke, Austin Jones, Amos Yee, Sneako, and Andrew Tait. Of all the names that I've just brought forth, they have all been given the dishonorable moniker of most hated men of the internet. And as you can probably tell with all these names that I've just brought forth, you'll understand why. Well, except for Ronnie Radke, but he's still a fucking asshole anyway. But out of all those people that I have just mentioned, one man stood out amongst those that I've just brought forth. He was patient zero of the title. He made a lot of people terrified over what he was doing on the internet. Now, to those of you who are not familiar with him, which I did not know, but those who would know his name would get a sense of nostalgic fear and a nostalgic chuckle of the good old days. And who is this man? Well, he was the king of revenge porn, Cunter Moore.
A date which will live in infamy.
Hey everybody, this is Atticus the Death Miller, and welcome to another episode of the Death Metal Historian, aka the bootleg version of Absolute Madland. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about Cunter Moore, the most hated man of the internet. A few things I want to get forth before we start the topic. I just want to let you know that yes, this was inspired by the little Netflix docu-series called The Most Hated Man of the Internet that I watched last summer. And I'm like, this would be a really good idea to make a death metal historian episode on. And thankfully, after all this time, I have enough time and effort to make this episode. So, now why was Cunter Moore patient zero for most hated man of the internet? Let us begin the video right now. It is January 10th, 2012, in the lavish suburbs of LA. 24-year-old Kayla Laws was working at her job at a local coffee shop. Kayla was an aspiring actress who had a loving family that supported her endeavors, and the future seemed bright for the young woman. That all changed when a fellow coworker who was not on her shift texted her. She said that she was so sorry and linked her to a site called isanyoneup.com. Curious to a fault, Kayla clicked the link to see what was the problem. That was when her entire world was completely shattered. Not only were there pictures of her on the site, but there were pictures that were clearly not safe for work. Basically, her nudes were out in the entire net for everyone's enjoyment. Not only were her nudes on display, but her name, address, email, and socials were also on the site. Kayla, understandably, was utterly devastated. While she was looking further, she saw the person's name who ran the site, Cunter Moore. Now, who was Cunter Moore? And what was Is Anyone Up?
Let's find out.
Situations are irrelevant now. She loves the
Cunter Edward Moore was born on March 9th, 1986 in Sacramento, California. Now, not a whole lot is known about his parents, but what we do know of his parents was that his father was a very passionate hunter, thus he gave him that name. At a very young age, he was diagnosed with a very crazy case of entrepreneurship. He wanted to make a name for himself, but really did not know what the flop he wanted to do. But he knew that in the future, he would impact millions. Thus, he dropped out of high school to pursue these endeavors. Ironically, he made a boatload of money after winning against a sexual harassment lawsuit against his old employer. However, that money was not used wisely, as he of course blew all that money on hookers and blow. Typical. Around 2010, he was a broke ass. But it was those life experiences of partying and whoring that gave him the initial idea of launching the site IsAnyoneUp.com. Now, before we talk about IsAnyoneUp.com, we're going to be talking about the time period that this episode is involved. So, to talk about Cunter Moore and Is Anyone Up properly, we are going to be talking about the time period. Now, this was the late 2000s and early 2010s that this all took place. If you're a millennial like me, that time period when I was like in high school up until my early days in college, that was peak millennial. Let me tell you. During that time period, a lot of people were moving off from MySpace and entering on Facebook. Twitter was being popular as well. It wasn't like the crazy far left shit-stained hole that we all know. Instagram was making its popularity as well as Snapchat. So a lot of social media sites were blooming up and it was getting crazy over on the internet. Not to mention, with the music scene, it was crazy. Now, yes, back in that time, I was on that, I hate all these fucking crabcore bands and all these scene kids. They're ruining all things metal. But back in that time period with all those people that love that kind of music, I mean, you had bands like Attack, Asking Alexandria, Black Veil Brides, Of Mice and Men, Motionless in White, Bring Me the Horizon, Escape the Fate, followed up with Falling in Reverse. Like, there were all these great bands, mostly on the crabcore side of things. But personally for me, it was the deathcore bands like that of Suicide Silence, All Shall Perish, Whitechapel, Carnifex, Despised Icon, and King Conqueror. Like a lot of really good second wave of deathcore bands that came out of the late 2000s, early 2010s. Then you also had dubstep, Skrillex, all that shit. But I mean, the pop music back in the early 2010s was absolutely egregious and abhorrent. Other than that, all this other music, people can look back and be like, wow, this shit was really good. Not to mention that every summer, every scene kid was most looking forward to was that of Warped Tour. So this was a great time to be a millennial. And not to mention, the ranting community was at its peak during this time period. Now, yes, I mentioned in my Coney 2012 video that there was a lot of like stupid, dumb shit that happened on YouTube. But other than that, it was good. But unfortunately, it was that time period where YouTube was gonna be like the site that we all know and hate right now. At the center of all of this was Cunter Moore and Is Anyone Up. At first, he was absolutely lazy with the site. But then as Is Anyone Up would gain its utter infamy when Cunter had a conversation with a friend. He stated, "One night while IMing, oh god, I am fucking old, with friends, Moore attempted to send a naked picture of a girl that he was at the time sleeping with. When it didn't work, a friend convinced him to upload it to IsAnyoneUp.com. He and his friends then proceeded to start adding to the site just for laughs, he said. A B9 forum poster somehow came across the site, and one day, Moore checked the traffic and realized that the site had gotten 14,000 unique hits the day before. That was when things really started to pick up. This was also like, a site where a lot of people would then be like, I got your picture on Is Anyone Up? And then they'd be like, oh shit, oh my god, why did you do that? Then they would have their like fucking 15 minutes of fame, laugh about it, and then just move the fuck on. And then you also had like fucking e-celebs, like proto-e-celebs back in the day, where you had women like Destiny Benedict, aka Butthole Girl, do her shenanigans, and she became like a fucking mascot on the site. And to have people like Jeffree Star comment on Butthole Girl was quite something for her, but we'll get down later on the line because it's really fucking dark. Now, as much as the site was our millennial version of having a fucked up version of a good time, given how crazy our humor was, this did not sit well with a lot of people.
I heard a knock upon my door the other day. I opened it to find her staring in my
With
face.
this traction on the site, IsAnyoneUp.com took more of a dark and sinister road. Revenge porn at this time was nothing new, but Cunter took revenge porn to its utmost extreme. Literally, he used his platform as a public humiliation platform. Most of his victims were people who had fallen out of messy breakups, and their disgruntled exes wanted to get back at them by simply posting all of their nudes on the site. And it was progressed even further, where even people's livelihoods were at stake. And what do I mean about this? Well, if your employer discovers your nudes or any incriminating stuff of you on isanyoneup.com, they would take it upon themselves to fire you. Yeah, Hunter used this site not only to humiliate, but to basically ruin people's lives and reputations. Many people who discovered their nudes and info on the site would directly confront Hunter about it. And they would always get the same response, a LOL or sorry buddy, it's nothing personal, it's just business. Basically slamming the door right in your face. And what do I mean about this? Is that all the public humiliation and slandering the site was known for was that it was a huge source of income. Now, all of you are asking me that. Atticus, the death meddler, how is this even possible? Well, Hunter was protected by the Communications Decency Act. What is that, you may ask? Well, it was the United States Congress's first notable attempt to regulate pornographic material on the internet. This was Hunter's trump card in getting away with all the crazy bullshit that he was doing. Yeah, this was a different time where the internet was not that regulated and not fun as it is today. And by the way, I know I've been calling him Hunter all this time, but I want him to call him by his new name, Cunter Moore. Why? Well, he's a fucking cunt, as we later delve down this episode. In response to the public bragging by Moore about the website, Rolling Stone dubbed him the most hated man of the internet. With all this, Cunter was pretty much an untouchable. With the free range he could do on the internet, he was essentially an agent of chaos in a realm that did not have regulations that we have now. But at this point in time, one person was going to step up to the plate and put a stop to it, once and for all. So now that we are back with Kayla turned over to the only person that she would know and trust with situations like this. Her own mother, Charlotte Laws. Charlotte Laws was a hell of a woman, and I mean that. So we have seen epic rivalries throughout history and fiction. God versus Satan, David and Goliath, 300 Spartans against the Persian horde, Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair, Stone Cold versus The Rock, some guy 827 versus Onision, official GATG versus Dobby Vandy. You get the picture over here. Anywho, Charlotte had a big resume on her hands into taking on Cunter. She was not only a journalist, but also a former private investigator. So if you're a guy like Cunter, you would have to have a cold sweat knowing that a former PI was going to get on your case. A PI that you had her daughter's nudes on your site. Charlotte immediately went to work to get her daughter's nudes off of the site.
The type of person that I know my mom is that she won't just sit on her hands. I think right in that moment, she got to work.
She, of course, contacted Cunter to get them removed, which she, of course, was met by the same old trick he did with all of his victims. So, Charlotte went over to the LAPD for help. And, of course, the detectives did not take her seriously.
You know, if Kayla had taken the photo in her room and put it in a dresser drawer and someone had broken in and stolen it, would you be telling her that she shouldn't have taken the picture, or would you be investigating the theft?
If Charlotte was going to take this absolute shitlord down, she was going to need reinforcements. I mean, she went all the fucking way. She went first over to the FBI, who had a similar but sympathetic response to her. But when she referenced Scarlett Johansson's news being leaked, they put in touch with one of their detectives. So when they were in touch with her, she decided to do her own investigation. Clever girl.
But they weren't giving me the immediate solution that I needed. The clock was ticking.
She had collected info on the self-proclaimed life ruiner, Cunter Moore herself. There she came into contact with over 40 victims that had similar cases like her daughter, Kayla.
Cunter Moore was willing to just post anything. I mean, the more it would impact somebody in a negative way, the more it would destroy their life, the better from his perspective.
She would soon discover that the only way that her daughter and victims' images were on isanyoneup.com in the first place was by hacking. Cunter never claimed that he gained any of the illicit images on his site by hacking, and Charlotte had to find an actual concrete evidence to show that Cunter did use hacking on his site. And with a little bit of help from the FBI, they believed they had their smoking gun.
I looked through the IP addresses, and two started to stick out. One of them we find is a apartment in Studio City, California. The other IP address is a business not far away.
A man by the name of Gary Jones, aka Charlie Evans. Not only he was a California native, but had mutuals with Kayla, whose photograph worked with Cunter from October 2011 till March 2012. the time frame where he had supposedly hacked into Kayla's email to obtain the pics. As soon as the FBI had their case set to meet with Charlotte, she already had a fat stack of evidence that she had built up to let the agents know that she was not fucking around.
I had a huge box, like a 12-inch box of information. I had found victims all over the country who had been hacked by the same hacker, and so I was able to give this information to the FBI.
But Charlotte was far from the only person that was after Cunter Moore. For Cunter had other people that had him on their shit lists.
You have no empathy.
No, they're just people, they're characters and avatars and icons on a screen.
Oh my God!
Enter James McGibney. McGibney at this time was a former Marine who ran a site called Bullyville.com. After seeing the controversy of Cunter Moore, he viewed him in his eyes as the ultimate bully. James's childhood was very tragic since his father was very abusive and was in the foster care system all of his life. He took all that tragedy into what he is now. Much like Charlotte and the FBI, he too made a rapport on his own.
It's like the Marines, you have to study your opponent. You have to study your prey. And I got to know more about Hunter's environment than Hunter knew about his environment.
He offered to purchase IsAnyoneUp.com, and around April 2012, the site was no more. Those that were huge fans of the site were rerouted over to Bullyville.com. Yeah, let's just say that all of his fanboys and fangirls were absolutely losing their collective shit.
I saw that word sellout, hashtag Hunter Moore, thousands of times. It was actually trending at one point.
So with Cunter's site gone and his entire fan base of crazy millennials calling him a sellout, you would think this would be the end for Cunter, right? No! Cunter did the oldest trick in the book where you are backed to a corner, nothing left, and the entire internet dogpiling on you. Call him a pedophile. Yes, Cunter stooped to the low into slandering James, calling him a pedophile who possessed child porn, and the icing on the cake threatened to, grape his wife. Of course, McGibney filed a lawsuit against Cunter for defamation. And if things were not bad enough, 8 months after shutting down IsAnyoneUp.com, he decided to go for round 2. Cunter announced his new site, HunterMoore.tv, stating, "I am creating something that will question that you will ever want to have kids." It was much like that of the old IsAnyoneUp.com site, but had in specific directions to visit said victim's house. I mean, like, you already had the victim's IP and home address and all their socials, so what was the fucking point into just adding directions to people's houses? Like, I don't fucking know. But then again, I mean, like, PS systems were like a little bit primitive back then. I mean, I had a Garmin back in 2012. So the news site was up and everyone's nudes were back on the site, including Kayla Laws. Charlotte at this point simply had enough and took matters even further, where she even decided to dox Cunter's actual address. Now, all of you know I absolutely despise doxing, but Charlotte was beyond petty, and the gloves were basically off. She was going to fight dirty no matter what. And knowing Cunter and his legions of absolute degenerates, it completely backfired. Multiple death threats, and even at one point had a stalker outside her house. But before things were getting way out of hand, she received a message from someone from a group called Anonymous. Yes, that Anonymous. Now I know all of you are cringing in the live chat in the comments on Anonymous. I know, I feel the same way too about Anonymous now. But Anonymous at this point in time was at their prime, and they were a group that you just did not want to fuck around with. Now, to those who are not familiar with Anonymous, Anonymous was a group of vigilante hackers from around the world that did very, very highly illegal things to obtain their goals. As in exposing pedophiles from the dark web, and hacking into the Egyptian government systems during their countless revolutions that were going on at that time period. Remember, this was when the Arab Spring was in full swing. Needless to say, Anonymous went after Cunter Moore. And oh boy, they did him absolutely filthy. No lube, no consent, with Operation Hunt Hunter.
And they said, "What's your plan? What do you want to do?" I really truly wanted to destroy his life, just like he had destroyed all these women's lives.
Of course, Cunter did not take these threats seriously, which was a grave mistake for the King Revenge. There he was doxxed, and his servers were absolutely hacked.
Money was siphoned out from the bank accounts, and donated to battered women's shelters throughout the United States. There was a death certificate that was filed in the state of California that had Cunter Moore legally dead.
And personally for me, I thought this was the funniest thing that that Anonymous did to Cunter was that they shipped over 100 dildos to his address. Good God, man. So yeah, Cunter was done filthy by Anonymous. So with Cunter being absolutely bodied by Anonymous, he did not know that the jig was finally up for him. Now that Cunter was done dirty by Anonymous, the final attack was set. With Charlotte and the FBI, they were all confident that they had a legit case on Cunter. On January 2014, he along with his sidekick Gary were arrested. They were both charged with conspiracy, multiple accounts of unauthorized hacking, and multiple accounts of identity theft. It's also quite ironic how this man was responsible for ruining so many lives across the internet, and when he was finally in trouble, he was reduced to a shriveling bitch. He was out on a $1,000 bond. After he was bailed, he was ordered to stay with his parents, and his internet privileges were revoked. But what is by far hilarious was that his parents were required to install parental controls. Now that's funny.
Cunter and his attorney kept pushing the court date. They don't want to go to jail, so they just keep postponing and postponing and postponing.
Finally, in February 2015, Moore pled guilty where he was facing up to either 2 or 7 years behind bars, followed up with a $500,000 fine. July of that year, Gary was pled guilty to identity theft and computer hack. He had admitted that he was solely responsible for selling the photos and obtained without consent, mostly from instructions of Cunter. In November 2015, Gary received a 25-month federal prison sentence, and in December 2015, Cunter was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months in prison, plus 3 years probation and a $2,000 fine. Finally, the most hated man of the internet was taken down, metaphorically drawn and quartered. But was he ever going to have the shenanigans when he would be released?
I am aware.
Cunter Moore, without a doubt, was a vile human being. Not as fucked up as the serial killers that I've mentioned or Oscar Del Venga, but he clearly got a rise and made profit on the humiliation and suffering of others with his site. Since he was taken down, Charlotte laws continue to reach out and help victims of these crimes, and even lobbying laws, no pun intended, for these things to never happen again.
Hacking so many people, posting so many people, but then he got to me. And along with me comes my mom. And my mom is not a person you want to cross.
In a way, and this is my personal opinion, it is such people like Cunter Moore, amongst other reasons why that the internet is the way it is now. Because back when the internet was unregulated, he had the utmost free range to do whatever he wanted. Laws made it clear that nothing like this would ever happen again. But the biggest question to all of you right now is, where is Cunter Moore now? Well, Cunter was finally released on September 22nd, 2017. Now all of you would think, oh god, he's gonna go for round 3, isn't he? Well, no he did not. He has kept a very low profile for a good reason. Facebook still has abandoned him, but he's currently still active on Twitter. In 2018, he published a book called Is Anyone Up? The Story of Revenge Porn. And basically, that's all we really know. The legacy of Cunter and IsAnyoneUp.com can still be rang through in popular culture. Most notably, Easycore Titans A Day to Remember made a song called Life Lessons Learned the Hard Way, which describes an attack on Moore, but was never carried out. Also, German post-hardcore band Electric Cowboy, by the way, check them out, they're fucking amazing, made a single called Is Anyone Up? And I have to mention him, of course. Blood on the Dance Floor, of all musical groups, made a song called Revenge Porn. Quite ironic. Cunter Moore still to this day has a string of admirers that still think that he is the shit, and probably you will find them in the comments on this video. I dread this moment when it happens. Now I know all of you will be saying to me, Atticus the Death Miller, I wish that the internet was still cool back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and I agree. I have a lot of fond memories, but you also have to remember that the early 2010s had cringe pop artists, Reply Girls, the 2012 president's election, Aurora and Sandy Hook, and Going 2012. But most importantly, the internet had Cunter. And Cunter did whatever it took to make sure that he lived a lavish and fast lifestyle as long as your life was ruined for his own gain. Now, I can speak on behalf of everyone here. I think all of us can agree that no one, and I mean no one, wants to have their nudes leaked out of the internet for everyone to see. And this is how you have like sex work sites like OnlyFans, Fansly, all that other sites where they have a pay log for you to like check out their nudes and other not safe for work shit. So the internet was a lot different back then, but I still miss the old internet back in the day. But yes, I can speak on behalf of everyone that nobody, and I mean nobody, including myself, do not want to have their nudes leaked out for everyone to see. I don't think anybody wants that. Now, are nudes still leaked? Yes, they are still leaked, but it's not prevalent as it was back then. I learned well when a certain guy with a 45-degree boomerang dong became the butt end of all jokes on the ranting community. I think you all know who I'm talking about. So, what did you guys think about this video? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Were you a part of the shenanigans on Is Anyone Up? Were your nudes ever brought forth on Is Anyone Up? Do you still remember your scene kid phase? Leave it all down in the comments below. And guys, thank you all so much for sticking with me. I understand that I'm not getting a lot of traction on this channel, but if you can, please like and comment on every video that I post. It really helps me out on the algorithm, and I would greatly appreciate it if you interact with all of my videos that I bring out. So yeah, just a friendly reminder, if you want to help out your small content creators, please like and comment and show us some love. It'll help us a lot. And stay tuned for more videos to come. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I am Atticus the Death Metal. Hope you like this video. Subscribe to my channel. Links down in the description below. Keep it metal. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Have an excellent and blessed day, y'all. Civilly.